So I've been wanting to do this for a while. In 2014, I went to Ireland, and it was a fabulous trip. And one of the highlights of my trip there was the Dingle Peninsula, and the weather was fantastic, and the beaches were like tropical beaches, which we didn't expect in Ireland. But there was a music shop called the Dingle Music Shop that it was one of the only places that we visited in Ireland that actually carried low whistles, and they had some chieftains, and they also had a Reviol low E flat, which I played, and it had a really rich resonant tone, very easy blowing, easy to break on the low end, but I enjoyed it so much I eventually went home, and a while after we'd gotten back, I went ahead and placed an order with Maurice Reviol for a set of whistles. Now, he only does alto heads, and he has an alto head and a low head, a large head and a small head, and he has bodies that you can swap between them. So it has the benefit of being more economical to get a complete set, but at least as far as the ones he carries. But it means that the ones at the top end of the head range end up being wide bore, and the ones at the low end are more of a narrow bore, and then there's like a sweet spot in the middle. So they don't all have the same characteristics. Whereas something like a set of goldies, you're going to have each key is going to kind of step down, or there'll be more steps in between, where the bore size, as you go from high to low, the bore gets progressively wider. And sometimes you have options to have like a narrow bore G versus a wide bore G, or a narrow bore E flat versus a wide bore E flat. And as far as how that affects things, the wider bores, for those who don't know, tend to have really big, full low ends, but it can be harsh or harder to access the top end. Whereas the narrow bores tend to be quieter whistles. They play more sweetly and very easy to get up into the second octave. So anyway, something happened with his order, and I think he changed emails or something, but there was a mix up, and he ended up not getting back to me. I hadn't paid him or anything, so it wasn't like my money was tied up. And after a while, I didn't have the money anymore, and so I kind of left it alone. But a few years later, I reached out, and he was very apologetic and ended up sending me a full set of he sent me a small head and a large head and a full set of bodies. So every body size that he carries, he went ahead and sent to me, and which was really awesome. And for years, I've really appreciated the rich, complex tone of the Reviols, and I've always wanted to have a couple more heads to just keep on the bodies, so I don't have to switch, because there's like a cork and cork grease, and it gets a little bit messy when you have the head off. There's grit gets in there, so I don't really like swapping the heads on the bodies. It's more economical, obviously, to have heads with a few bodies. So I placed an order with him a couple years ago for a couple. I think it was like another alto head and another low head or large head, and so he sent them to me, and I was surprised because the alto head didn't play the same as the one that I'd gotten originally, and even the low head was a little bit different. And he said his stuff is pretty consistent. I've even heard Irish Flute Store posted some of his whistles, and they're like, yeah, super consistent Reviols. So I'm not exactly sure what the deal is, but the original head that I got from him for the small head was extremely, like, it had more like it was a little bit more compressed, and a little bit like you had to push a little bit more, like the windway was a little bit more closed down. Not as much as a Goldie, but very just a very unique playing whistle. And I find it's one of the more difficult whistles to play. It's less forgiving, but when you can really get a hold of it, play it right, it's an amazing tone. And so it's just one of the ones I just really enjoyed. And ironically, I when I first started playing it, I liked it on the higher keys. But over the years, I actually started liking to put it on my e-body. So what I did two things. One, I reached out to Maurice and I was asking him about the difference. And he ended up sending me six alto heads. And what he did, he rummaged around his storage because I think he kind of does this part time. His primary profession is like band instrument repair, and so he sort of does this kind of on the side. Like he'll make a batch of whistles, and if people express interest in them, he sends them out. But he had a bunch in storage, and he said, "I'll just find anything that seems like it plays differently, maybe even some ones that he rejected." And he just sent a bunch to me, and he sent me like six alto heads and six large heads and let me pick through them. And of the six that he sent me, one of them was definitely like a big, huge, full sound, but very, very hard to access, almost impossible to get to the top notes. And then the other ones played almost identically to the one that he'd sent me before. And then one of them was almost exactly like the original one that I had, which had like it was a little bit more back pressure, and just I was like, as soon as I think it was on my like the sixth one. I tried all of them and I was like, oh man, this is like these all play the same. And I put that one on and I started playing it. It was like so easy to play, but very rich and full. And I was like, oh, this is it. So the other thing that I was doing at the time was I was looking at Marketplace, and several like alto Reviols had come up for sale. They're all alto Fs. Everyone buys an alto F, which I feel like is kind of the sweet spot for the alto key for Reviols. But I'd bought two of them from various players, and each one played differently, but in a different way. And so what I've done, so I kept one more Reviol head. I think I sent all the large heads back to him because they were pretty much the same as the one he'd sent me. But I now have is an almost complete set of Reviols. I have a complete set of the alto heads, and I've got an E flat, which is the original one that I had, and then I have a D flat, which is with the new head on it, and I have a low D head, which I kind of wish I could have one more low D head for or large head for the low D, just because it's a low D and it's kind of weird having an E flat and a D flat, but no low D. But I've got other low D whistles that I play. I don't need it. So I'm just keeping it. But if I'd found one that was really nice, I probably would have kept that head. But anyway, I just kind of wanted, now that I had this set, I sort of just wanted to play through them and just kind of go over the characteristics. But that's the thing about handmade instruments, is that, and even the, what I do with the comparisons is I realized, I can compare the whistles that I own and the models that I have, but these makers, they change their processes over time. They change their designs over time. Even when you're talking about factory produced things like the Chieftain whistles, there's some phenomenal Chieftain whistles that aren't in production anymore. Dixon has had some models that were amazing, and then they quit making them. And then some, they may have been phenomenal at one point, but they made changes and then they don't work as well. Sometimes makers will change their designs and they may like them better, but I don't like them as much. My carbony whistles are kind of like that. The ones I've played, some of them are open and breathy and take a lot of air, and some of them have like perfect back pressure and they're still breathy, but they've got, it's like they're balanced in a way that suits me and my playing style, but maybe doesn't suit somebody else. So with all that is to say is that whenever I'm doing comparisons, you have to realize that I'm comparing the models that I have. And so this is a set that I can kind of pull together that I really enjoy. But if you were to order some from Maurice Reviol, they will play similarly, but you're going to have, at least the ones that I played, the ones that he sent to me, they're all going to be slightly more open, maybe less prone to clogging, but just kind of a different, slightly different tone. So sometimes you have to do that. Like if you pick out, Goldie whistles are like that, but it's kind of a built-in feature. Colin Goldie acknowledges he's got hard blowers, he's got medium blowers, medium soft. Some are more open, and that's one of the reasons when you call him, he can play a bunch of different whistles for you, and you say, "Ooh, that one is exactly." And you can even hear it sometimes. He played a bunch of A whistles for me one time when I was picking mine out, and unfortunately, I had this idea that I wanted an A whistle that had a really soft, like the top note. I was going for easiest, and I didn't care about anything else. And there was one whistle on his call that just sounded amazing to me, and I would have picked it, but I asked him, like, does that one have an easy top note? And he was like, I don't know. And so I asked him to pick out the one that sounded like it had the softest top note. And of all my Goldies, that's that I've owned, which is four. I think I've had 4 or 5. Well, I've had some high Ds too, but it's my least favorite, and it plays well. I mean, it's a Goldie, so it's really still a good whistle. But I kind of wish I'd just gone with, oh, that one sounds good, let's go with that one, rather than trying to find something else. So, but again, that's one of those things. Even an amazing maker like Colin Goldie, who's world renowned, he still has this variation in his whistles that he acknowledges. So I feel like Maurice Reviol, these are all handmade. Again, he's kind of a hobby. He makes them in batches, gets them anodized. And so there's some variability. So you need to expect that kind of thing. And most makers will work with you. It's probably hard, though. Maurice Reviol is stationed in New Zealand, so it's not like it's a quick, back and forth. But I mean, he sent me a package. I think it was packed in a milk cart with a bunch of heads in it. So nothing against him. So these are just my this is just my Reviol collection. So and yeah. So here is my Reviol A. This was the head that I found that matched the one that he sent me. I felt like, ooh, this is the head, and that's kind of what I ended up doing with all the different ones all the F whistles that I had. I would actually swap them to different bodies until I found one that I was like, okay, this is the sweet spot for this particular whistle head. So it kind of worked out, the variability in the 3 that I have. It worked out well because there were a couple that I tried on different bodies and I didn't like them as much. So here's the A. It's a very, very wide bore A whistle. You can see here's a JP Lemire whistle, and you can see it fits inside, almost fits inside the bore of the A whistle. So even Maurice Reviol said that the A body might be a little bit too wide, but I like it. It's got a really rich, big, full sound. So that's that one. like I said, it's not quite as complex as the original one that I have, but I almost feel like it's a little bit easier blowing, a little bit more open than the original one, and it works really well for the wider bore, which needs a little bit more ease in push. So here's the one that I have on my G whistle. You can see again, even the stamps. This one is wider. This one is kind of a little bit more faded. I'm not really sure why that is. Hey, oh man, you look like a little old man. He's got his 100 days of school costume on, wig and glasses and everything. You look like, yep, look like a little old man. Here's the. I'm 1,000 years old. Okay, well I hope you survive a little longer. So here's the low G or the alto G. So this one is a pretty wide, full G whistle. I think if you look at the Carrie Busker or Thunderbird series G, it's also got a very about the same bore size on this one. So wide bore, big full tone. If you prefer a narrower bore whistle, something that plays more like a high whistle, definitely not. The A's and the G Reviols are not for you. But here we get to the F. And again, I really feel like this is sort of the sweet spot for it's very easy to blow. This one is, again, I think this was just the F that somebody sent me, and I just kept the body on it because I felt like it played really well. Very lightly playing, but a very full tone. Very nice whistle. Of my set, this one probably plays the best. But it's got an edge to it, and I've found that whistles that are edgier, like they've got more grit in their sound, they're more feel like their tone is sharp. It almost feels like that sharpness makes it a little bit harder to play. Like something like a Shearwater, some of those it's like because their wind waves are a little bit wider. There's more breath noise because it's not quite so refined down to a, because the tone hasn't been compressed. It's almost like it in sharpening the tone, it increases your requirements for your breath. Like you have to hit things just so, otherwise. So it's a little bit more. I would say these are advanced whistles, which is to say that sometimes I can't play them very well. But the newer ones, and again, that may be why he may have opened the window way up just slightly, trying to get like less clogging, make it a little bit easier to play, and they play well. I just really like that focus that were on some of the older heads that I've picked up. So here's the low F. Good. make sure it's clear. See, see. Hey, I'm in the middle of something. Please be respectful of the video. So that's that one. And I'll just play over here. Here's a Goldie. Hey, Jasper, can you go be noisy in a different room?
Yeah.
I'm trying to record. Okay. Here's a Goldie. F. So. So not as high definition of a tone, a little bit more open, a little bit more not open, but a little bit more fuzzy, cloudy. So okay. So you can hear how there's a little bit more chiffiness, I guess, to the attack on the Reviol. But there's like a complexity to the tone that I really like. I think the Goldie is a little bit easier to play. And again, I want to repeat that the Goldie that I have is a medium blower, and not all Goldies sound alike. So when you call Colin, there may be some that have, I've heard some very complex Goldies, particularly the ones that Brian Finnegan plays. They've got a gritty, rich, complex tone, but that's the one that I have, and it's a fabulous whistle, and it was my favorite low F for quite a while. And here is the low E. You do have to make sure these are warmed up very well. Speaking of carbonies don't clog. So like as far as reliability goes, a carbony is really, really good for that. But not my favorite tone for the whistles, but here's the E. And this is the original head that I got. Again, this one's a little bit harder to play than some of the others, but it is fabulous. Like, I love the tone, and it's just one that I keep coming back to. So anyway, that's one of my favorite whistles. A little bit harder to handle, but just a joy to play. especially since I don't have to play professionally. I can just play for enjoyment. And then here is the E flat. This is the low E flat that kind of started it all. It's not the one that from the shop. I kind of wish I kind of wish now that I'd been able to buy the one in the shop at the time. But yeah, I didn't. So sorry, Dingle Music Shop. And again, these are almost, these were originally, I think Maurice studied under another whistle maker, and I can't for the life of me think of his name right now. But they're very well regarded whistles, and the design is almost the same. It's got kind of this. It's similar to the Goldie design as far as, or the Overton design, kind of this flat windway. But it's got this kind of long, depressed taper, which may help with tuning between the octaves, maybe. So here's the E flat. Dogs are making noise. Anyway, get the idea. Very lovely low D whistle, or low E flat. All right, so here is my Goldie low D. I'll play that in between the Reviols just to again, similar design, a little bit more back pressure on the Goldie. The Reviol has a more open tone, more complex tone. So here's the low D Goldie, medium blower. low D Goldie. And then finally, here is the D flat Reviol. Again, head size is the same as the E flat, so it's more of a low a bore or a narrow bore. And then there's also a low C body. So one thing I'll do, this is the second one that I got from Maurice, and this one I don't feel like has the same level of definition that the E flat does. It's a little bit more open, a little bit more breathy. It's not my favorite of the whistle heads, but I don't need a D flat all that much, so I kept it. But let me show you. I'm going to put the old head on, the original head that I had, and I'll try to adjust it about the same. There we go. And maybe you can hear the difference between them. So this one doesn't allow as much breath pressure before it breaks. but it's got a little bit more grit to the tone. So I vastly prefer that head to the other one. And someday I may look for some older Reviols to swap them out. Much softer playing. It doesn't take as much breath, but I feel like it's got more less breath noise, just a crisper sound. So then that's the head that I keep on my E flat. Again, the original one Here is the one that, like, pretty much all the ones that he sent me, the 6 heads, they all played pretty much the same. So I just sent all 6 of them back and just kept the one that he'd sent me before. So you can hear it's not a bad sound. It's just a little bit more. It doesn't have that it doesn't have the sizzle that the other one does. A little bit more breath noise. So there you go. That's my Reviol set. Actually, you know what? I'll go ahead and do this since I have the E flat head off. I will go ahead and stick it on the low D body. It's a little bit of a tight fit. Played this one on here for a long time. Hopefully, let me see. Here's the low D. Make sure that at least they're tuned. Here's the low D. Let's see if I recall. you go. So I know that was a very long video. Hopefully you didn't have to sit and listen to the whole thing. You just skipped around to the parts that were interesting to you, but I hope that was interesting.